Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Risa Shimoda with the River Management Society, and I'm thrilled to be here to share expertise regarding using social media to advance your river programs. This is one of our monthly river management roundtables, always on the second Tuesday, almost always on the second Tuesday of the month. And we provide either programs that are sort of nuts and bolts river sharing about access, easements, safety, and signage, and also spend time talking about workplace culture, which is so important to all of our workplaces and the communities that we serve. RMS is a river management society, is a membership organization. We rely on members for our to keep us going and keep our lights on to help us do our programming. And also, our members are volunteers who serve on our board. So our fiduciaries at my boss are a bunch of volunteers. If you're not a member now, I'd appreciate if you could join. So before we start, you can read the suggestions that we have for the time that you're here. We will record this and have it be posted on the River Training channel in a day or two. Please feel free to ask questions, and please respect the opinions and the comments of other people who are here with us today. Before we start, I'd like to just share a little tiny bit about a few of our speakers. We will hear a bunch from Daniel, but I wanted to add a little bit about the others before we get started. Just really quick. Morgan, who you'll hear in a minute, is Illinois River Watershed Partnership Associate Director. At IRP, Morgan leads initiatives to improve water quality, and she is deeply committed to strengthening communities and the preservation of the Ozark heritage. She believes that service to place and people is the highest form of leadership, and she's a native of the River Valley. She holds a BA in journalism from Arkansas Tech and an MBA from the Walton College of Business at the University of Arkansas. Since joining IRWP in 2020, Morgan has managed grants and a loan program from the Arkansas Department of Agriculture Natural Resources Division, the Walton Family Foundation, the USDA NRCS, Arbor Day Foundation, and others. Herman Jenkins is the program manager for trails for the Friends of the Rouge. He has an unusual river background. His professional career began with the Detroit Tigers in community relations and strategic planning, developing programs that included the Negro League Scholarship and the Jackie Robinson Essay Art and Poetry Contest. And he managed the development of the Diverse Business Partner Program, an effort to ensure inclusivity in the team's procurement process. He says the Rogue River watershed is important because it impacts so many communities as the river and its tributaries drain our stormwater overflows into the Detroit River. I'm intrigued and inspired by the idea of working to help transform the Rouge, to design and build trails, blueways, and greenways that can serve as connective tissue for people living in these communities, often siloed from one another. Working with community groups and stakeholders to develop programs and activities is an opportunity to bring communities and people together with and around a truly underutilized and underappreciated natural resource. Allison works with Herman as the operations coordinator, but she works with Friends of the Road to promote positive change in the community as the person responsible for social media and outreach. She has a bachelor's degree in chemistry from the University of Dayton, relocated to Michigan in 2019, where she focused her attention working with nonprofits and schools. When she is not in the office, you might find her hiking or exploring the local communities that make up their watershed. I'm going to mention a few topics that we're going to talk about, and we're going to have this kind of be our ongoing kind of framework for the discussion for the hour. And then we're going to go through one model of how, one organization, how Morgan addresses this. And then we're going to come off sharing the screen and we're just going to have our faces. So this is more of a discussion. But I broke these out because they're each really important. So how do you define your audiences? This is one of the most important things you can do as a marketing person. And how is your profile changing as demographics are shifting? And importantly, um, like baby boomers who were the dominant demographic 7, 8 years ago for sure are now almost not around anymore. So there's big shifts going on. Plus the preferences for different generations vary so much. And so what's your strategy? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that and measure the effect so that you know what you're doing is working, or if you want to make changes, you can do so. And knowing that raising awareness is really important, but then stirring someone or a group to action is, yet another important act that you want to measure. How do you get to these folks? What channels do you lean on? Are you using AI for internal communication and external messaging? That's like an ongoing question for everybody, I think. And then finally, do you have any advice for others who are tasked with telling their organization's stories, whatever that means for the different folks here? Okay, so those are the questions that everyone is going to sort of be talking about and around. And then I'd love to have Morgan talk about her funnel. You can tell people how you came about developing this, and then we'll kind of take this as a framework, how others kind of address the same kind of process, and then we'll just start chatting. So Morgan, it's all you.
Thank you, Risa, for that introduction. So, I'm Morgan Keeling. I'm Associate Director at the Illinois River Watershed Partnership, or I'll say IRWP for short. At IRWP, we've been around about 20 years. Our mission is to improve the integrity of the Illinois River watershed through public education, outreach, and implementing conservation restoration practices in the watershed. So, defining our audiences, a little backstory on this funnel. We have a communications and outreach strategy at IRWP, but this was actually something that I created for my interview for IRWP. I was moving from for-profit small business marketing into conservation, and they had me create an event plan for a conference that I was going to be putting together if I was hired. And I had not worked in nonprofit. So my first question was, what does a nonprofit sales funnel look like? How do they bring people from awareness to, in sales world, that's repurchasing the product if you're a product-based business. So I created this and put it in my event plan. And then since we have used it as a tool in our organization to think about how we prioritize our messages. So, how do we define our audience when you're talking about watershed management and watershed education? You kind of have to think about segmenting your audiences rather than excluding some specific audiences and then prioritizing them. So, this is how we utilize that. We have a watershed of about 1 million acres. It spans across 2 states. There are very large differences in socioeconomic vulnerability across the watershed. There are very large differences in urbanization. So there is a very urban core, and then there is a very rural area, which makes up the majority of the land. So we have to kind of focus on both of those, but strategically, because we don't have infinite dollars to reach those people. But we are competing with the same attentions that for-profit companies are. So we have to be competitive in that. So we have one tool that we have developed, just to be specific, is some demographic analysis, which has each of the zip codes in the watershed. And right now it's just on the Arkansas side, but we'll be developing this on the Oklahoma side with that data. So it looks at what the average age is in that zip code, education, some like average house cost, basically. I'm missing the terms on that, but basically we can look in that and have a hyper local snapshot of what that community looks like so that we can meet them where they're at. Sometimes we really need to lean into focusing on the education portion. Sometimes it's really heavily we have financial assistance to get you practices across. And so adjusting those messages based on that specific demographic has really been helpful. Ultimately, we are targeting decision makers, so that's at the top priority of every single one of these. We think about who in within this geographic area are decision makers. Does that look like the school board in this smaller town, or in some of the more urban towns, it's like the Urban Forestry Commission is making a lot of the decisions that we need to jump into. So we figure out who are making those decisions and target those folks. And then ultimately, with this funnel, so moving from the highest bucket of awareness, this is all your money invested in billboards and broad outreach, to moving someone to adopting a practice, or even better, becoming a longstanding volunteer or like a board member. And so one thing that we've done that also helps build on this funnel is in these communities, we work on building an advocate, a liaison, so that we don't have to be the voice and the face that's walking into that, whether that be a church or a school group, to kind of tell the story. We try to find someone that we really coach and develop their knowledge in watershed management, hyper local to their creek, their situation, so that they can be the voice and the advocate for us. So that's how we use this funnel. You guys can read some of the things on the side, which is kind of the methods. And one thing that we are working on redeveloping this year is our landowner database. So we want to have that where we can query, let's say, any property owners that have over 15% of their land is forested, or if they're in a riparian area, so that when we're developing mailers, for example, we can make sure that everyone who has that characteristic of their property is going to be receiving that mailer. So let's see, just going down through here and reorganizing where y'all are on my screen so I can read this. Um, so yeah, what are our strategies for effective social media? So we kind of think about the social media hitting not every single one of these layers, but most of them. And so how that is done is, of course, some posts are going to be broad awareness based. And what we try to do is really lean into partnerships in those. So if it's a more broad awareness based post, we're going to be tagging partners so that it can be shared far and wide. That information is going to be, specifically tailored to someone who maybe doesn't know their local stream or creek or something, whatever that topic is going to be. But we use events within Facebook and share those for our more insulated, our already adopters, the people who are already following and engaging with us. And so posts are for different groups, and then we'll use the boost tool. Granted, since I started doing Facebook advertising before it was Meta, it was very specific and granular. You could drill down to exactly who you wanted to target. It's way different now. And so we have been using that less, but we will boost these posts to, for example, the more awareness ones to people who don't follow our page. And then the events ones, we're going to stay boosting those if we are going to boost those to people who like our page, or maybe friends of people who like our page at most. And so that's how we're really able to use those different mechanisms within the social media platform to target. We use Facebook and some Instagram more and more. We have a fantastic program coordinator on our staff who's a little younger than me and way better at doing the reels than I am. So we do some Instagram, but pretty much everything is posted on Facebook. Like if we have an event, that's what I tell people, like check our Facebook. That's where you're going to find every single thing that you need. One that I think is worth mentioning is Google My Business, and we keep that up to date. If we're going to be closed for a snow day, I try to go post on there and adjust our hours. I know it's not always seen as a social platform, but it is used, and you can see the statistics for who is using Google My Business to navigate to your business if you're a physical one, or to visit your website. So I would say, like, add that to your social media updates. Just getting one post on there a year, I've heard is really good for SEO. It's just going to keep your Google My Business profile active. And yeah, we like keeping our hours up, as updated as possible. And actually, I try to live by that. Somebody needs to be in the office if we say we're open till 4. If not, then we need to probably say we're closed today if we're all out on the river or something like that, which we do, thankfully. Um, Let's see. Photos, a little bit of direction, I think, has gone a long way. One for the systems for uploading photos, and two for types of photos to have really good dynamic publications, both in print and online. You need some photos that are more macro, so you're getting a very close up of maybe the bee and the or the butterfly and the flowers parts, and then more of the macro, so more landscape scale. Of course, if you're taking pictures of people, you need that kind of medium shot, follow the rule of thirds type of photo. But we encourage getting these different types so that the publications look really dynamic and it's not just kind of all one point picture that's scattered throughout. We use Google Drive, we use a shared drive, and we encourage staff to get the Google Drive app on their phones. They are encouraged to take photos at every event that they are at and just upload those in nice folder structures labeled. And what that allows the program coordinator to do, or anyone who needs to go in and make a social post, is to very easily navigate to where good photo content is. And that's half the battle. Anyone who knows doing socials, half the battle is getting good photos that people want to see and click on online, right? And so having that system has really allowed us to just always have content we can pull from. Um, Again, I can't say it enough. Whenever we lean into our partnerships and co-develop, right now I'm thinking about our blogs, the stewardship stories. Those always outcompete the ones where we're just doing it solo. So, like our social media strategy, whenever we possibly can, is to lean into a partnership of some kind. And just to kind of wrap up this comment, I think that this kind of tactical awareness funnel can be developed to any organization. It can be used to help think through the several levels and different mechanisms which each one of those target, and then also figure out what your budget should look like. If you're really heavily needing to get awareness out, maybe you're putting more money into the top bucket. If you really need to reinforce your message, then you need more of those things where you're like coddling your cohorts of groups more in the middle. And what are our best practices? 10 out of 10 narratives over didactic messaging. So anytime you can tell a story, the neurochemicals in your brain, oxytocin, are bonding you with the storyteller. That is going to have a way different reaction than just putting up the facts. 20 acres of erosion a year, that's what we have in our watershed. But when I put up the story about the farmer who has lived here his whole life, him and his family grew soybean and alfalfa at this convergence of Clear Creek and the Illinois River for 70 years. And in the last 3, he's seeing, this land is unable to be used. That is just a totally different, like I get chills just thinking about it because this is a true story. Also, people really connect with that and can understand, okay, erosion, bad, affecting people rather than 20 acres of abstract land sheared off. Those stories, it's how we've passed down everything in our culture. So they bond you not just with people, but with communities. And I think for us as a nonprofit, telling those stories in compelling ways is part of our job. So we're always trying to get better at doing that. One thing I've learned and has been reinforced in me in nonprofit is the positive messaging. So always staying positive, keeping at least a neutral message, but if you can, a positive one. Um, and keeping it stakeholder led once again. So allowing someone else to develop the content and you just share it out. Again, we lean on all of our partnerships to be as successful as we are. Um, and I would say those are our main strategies, tactics at IRWP here in Northwest Arkansas. Risa, you are muted. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, and for sharing the funnel and the examples. And we're going to move on to Daniel. So from Friends of the River, and if you could just share a little bit about your background, I neglected to do that earlier. That would be great because it's a little. I think it's helpful for people to know that you weren't just born yesterday into this work, and it'll be obvious when you talk about it, but it'll be helpful to share a little bit too.
Yeah, thank you, Risa. And yeah, my name's Daniel. I am the community engagement manager for Friends of the River. Friends of the River's been around for probably 50 years, since like the early 70s. They kind of were the folks in California that sort of started this environmental movement. And they've been doing that ever since. They've gone through sort of expansion and shrinkage and expansion over those 50 years. So we're back to sort of to a small knit group of probably about 8 staff. Maybe 6 of us are full time. I want to say the other 2 or 3 are part time, and then we have maybe 6 or 8 more volunteers that kind of work in a lot of our policy and legal side of things. My background, I'm actually was trained as a geographer and a GIS specialist. I started working with a group called Missouri River Relief back in the late early 2000s, hosting river cleanups up and down the Missouri River. And then I moved abroad for about 10 years working as a contractor on various projects in like humanitarian aid, environmental aid, environmental protection. Uh, and it was a lot of learning how to do storytelling because I'm again coming back to the States to tell a story about where I just was. So doing a lot of field work, you're constantly having to sort of document what you're doing and then tell people about it when you get home and make it interesting, make it fun, and sort of learning those little techniques. I moved back to the States, I want to say in 2013, and started working at a group here in Northern California called Missouri River, or sorry, South Yuba River Citizens League. They're more of a science restoration based river organization. They do a lot of river protection in the Yuba River watershed. There it was full on communications, e-news, social media, outreach, engagement. I did work about a year working as a contractor for a social media manager for a wildlife nonprofit. And that was full on, just 100% of my job was just creating content and getting donations. And then in this last year, I picked up another. I love river organizations, so I came back to Friends of the River, and I've been working with them, wearing all the hats, doing all my Swiss Army knife, nonprofit work of helping out with community engagement, helping out with social media, with all their communications, development, membership, events, all the things. Anything where we're engaging folks. For the communications port in my position right now, I'm probably doing anywhere from about 20 to 50% of my time is just on communications. And of that, I would say about 10 to 15% of my time, ideally more, that I typically spend on social media. Um, so from all of this said, I've usually always done other projects within nonprofits. Social media was just one of those side things that we kind of had to do. And you got to learn how to do it quickly, because I can't spend an entire day or two just trying to crank out social media content. So I've learned some little tricks that I'm hoping I can give you guys some ideas. So how we define our audience at Friends of the River, again, we were started in the 70s, so most of our folks were in their 20s around then. They were whitewater guides, they were whitewater community, rafting people, outdoors people. Now today, most of those folks are in their 70s and 80s. They don't typically use a lot of social media, or we're having to do a lot of to train them on social media. So I use a lot of different communication styles within an organization. We do put out a monthly newsletter. I'll do a couple different standalones throughout the month. I mainly use probably Facebook and Instagram the most. Facebook just has a lot of extra additions, events, things that you can use, marketing, different tools that you can easily use just to make things really fast. Um, what I've found just in the last few years, trying to reach new audience, we do a lot of inspiring people to take action politically, to be advocates for rivers across California. And so some of that is creating things, content, creating materials that are more inclusive, to younger people with families, people that work a 9 to 5 job. They can't show up for a 2 o'clock meeting, sometimes. So it helps to have these different events that we can put on and content that does reach out to families. Hey, are you and your family looking for a place to go this weekend? Here's a great river to go visit. Here's a great public access. Here's some cool things you might want to know. So giving people information that is useful to them and to sort of grow that audience. Right now, we are working on trying to look at more of a newer audience of activists, college students, outdoor recreationists, river rafting, and then that single day river user is pretty common here in the Sierras in Northern California. People coming from the Central Valley or from the Bay or from Sacramento, they drive 2 or 3 hours to get to a river and they hang out for the day and then go home. So within the local communities, a lot of what I heard are people like, how do we connect with those people? Like they're not stopping anywhere, they're not part of our communities, but they're still using our rivers and trashing our rivers and getting hurt at the river. So we're trying to find again ways that messaging that we can push out to the general public that they can use. Um, River community has probably been one of my big branding and messaging. Unlike all the other nonprofit sectors I've worked in, River community is the tightest group of folks I've ever met. I don't know if it's because we have rivers to hang out at the weekends, or it's sort of like a passion plus a love, and so we're willing to do a lot, and we also can hang out together by a river and have fun. So in a lot of my messaging that I'm putting out there, I'm like, this is a great community to be involved in. Like, find your community. It is here. It is by the river. So I'm constantly pushing community, community, community in all of my messaging. Strategies that we sort of have used for social media and ways that we kind of measure that. Um, I put things in two different bins. I put a lot of my material and things I post online into what I call gives and gets. Gives are sort of that raising awareness. It's informational stuff, it's fun stuff. Social media is like 75% entertainment, and maybe that other 30 to 25% is just the information. So I try to stick around like a 3 to 1, 3 gives to 1 get. So when I'm talking about gives, I'm talking about here's some pretty pictures of a river. Here's something entertaining or beautiful, or here's a positive message or a cool poem my volunteer wrote. Um, or here's a cool event we did, and here's some fun river pictures or a video. And then mixing that in with like, hey, it's a call to action. I need volunteers this weekend, or we have an event coming up, or make a donation, and making sure I have that sort of constantly going throughout my calendar of social media. Um, just because people follow you doesn't mean they're actually seeing your content. This is like one of the most stressful things I've ever had with social media. The algorithm, unless you're posting consistently, 3 times a week, every week, the algorithm's going to keep bumping you up and showing your material to more and more people. When I've gone, 3 or 4 months posting 5 times a week, I will get feedback from Meta that's like, hey, we're showing your content to more people. I do start to see upticks in the growth of viewers and engagement and all of this stuff. And it's even like not just the people that follow us, it's also new audiences and that kind of thing as well. So consistency, I think, with social media, it's hard, but there's tricks and things you can that make it easier and a little quicker. Um, and oh, one of the other things a lot of do before big events, before I have a big fundraiser coming up, I will like offload a ton of really positive information, like a week or two. Here's a bunch of beautiful photos. Here's a bunch of my volunteers doing fun things. Here's a cool story. Hey, now I need you to sign up and come to my fundraiser. So it's sort of prompting people to like your information, and suddenly they're seeing your stuff in their feed every day, and then you can start to make those asks. And it's actually worked really well for me in the last year. Um, I try to do a mix of content. So what Friends of the River, we focus on river protection. We work all up and down the state of California. Um, it's really depressing work because it's all about the destruction of rivers and what's happening. Rivers are drying up. We don't have enough water for fish. So when I first started, they were posting a lot of things, and I was like, honestly, this is like exhausting to like look at this information because it's just very negative. I can immediately see audiences just like scrolling past because it's like bad news, bad news, bad news. So I talked to my team a little bit, and we actually now put things into 3 different bins. What we call like rivers are fun. The fun things, we talk a lot about like Watershed Wednesdays, what in the watershed, little fun factoids that we can share with people. What's that flower growing by the river right this season? What is that animal? We do Fun Fact Fridays where I have the scientists tell me some fun facts, and I'll use those on a post. Again, just giving people fun content, good resources, things they might share. Here's a favorite river. Here's some cool videos of people rafting down a cool waterfall or a rapid or something. The second two are sort of the rivers are vital, meaning that's information that people want. Hey, we need salmon because it's an important, part of our ecosystem and sustaining our all of us. And then the last one are sort of like rivers are threatened. And this is where, again, having visuals of like sick rivers and a healthy river next to each other are really good. We talk a lot about the threats, and that's mostly what we talk about in all of our e-news and our articles are like this river's threatened, that river's threatened, this river's threatened. But if we have too much of that content, I slowly see people stop following and reading our content. So having this like mixture of feel good and then like bad things are happening that we need to fix, and you can do it. That kind of brings me to the last point is being able to talk to your audience. Something I've still been learning, instead of just saying, hey, we have this event coming up, it's saying, what are you doing this weekend? You should come to our event. Come check it out. What's your favorite thing about a river? Like literally talking to your audience when you're writing in posts, when you're writing in any kind of communications, it's just super helpful. Um, as a statewide organization, we do use some targeted ads again, with Meta. It's just easier instead of me trying to like talk about the Kern River to the whole state of California. I can really focus it like my advertising or boosting my post to those communities within that region, or age group or whatever I'm kind of looking to beef up. Um, the channels we mostly lean on, again, Facebook. If you're not involved in Facebook groups, I highly recommend getting involved in Facebook groups and following whatever local groups are out there, whatever county groups or environmental groups. That's where I actually will reshare a lot of my posts, and I get a lot of new followers through those groups. That tends to be just one of those little hacks that I've sort of found and I've been using a lot of. Um, TikTok is one that we don't use a lot of. It requires a lot of video content. If you have a lot of video content, great. If not, I've kind of held off on it just for a while. However, I have found TikTok does make great videos. So if you do have a bunch of B-roll of videos, 3 seconds, you can just throw them all into TikTok and say, make me a video and put some pretty music to it. And it'll create this great shot of a bunch of rivers and music. And it's easy and it's super fast. Um, Other channels we use for just again organization and speed wise, Airtable is a really great software we use. It's kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, but it's smart. So you can upload pictures or videos. I usually write all of my posts there, and then I can actually have it's all online. So then you can have other members in your staff actually go through and review and check things and say, they can check off, give you back feedback, whatever you need on that. That's one way I've worked with my staff. I use Metricall, another software just for like scheduling. I don't personally get onto Facebook and schedule anything anymore. I just put it into our scheduling system. There's a bunch of different ones out there. But use those. I'm able to usually schedule stuff like 2 or 3 months in advance. We have a fundraiser in April and I'm recruiting volunteers for a couple of things. And I just went ahead and just like drafted like 20 posts so I can have one every week that I know is going to be like, hey, we have a fundraiser. Hey, we're looking for volunteers. And it's just sort of this constant cadence of information. And I can just sort of not worry about it for a while. Um, and then last thing, Canva. If you guys do use Canva, I use it a lot. It's just another easy software to make quick social media posts, edit videos. You can find stock photos really quickly there without having to search all over the internet and find open source stuff. It's just very simple, very easy to use. I'm always plugging that with my staff too. I'm like, just do it in Canva. It's just so much faster and easier. Um, and then from that, again, we do have a lot of different audiences and different people communicate in different ways. So we do heavily rely on email and mass emails and newsletters. I've been trying to do more in welcome series, same as I'm getting people. You can do sort of welcome series on Instagram and Facebook now through Meta, which is kind of nice. Anytime people like a post or comment on a post that don't actually follow you, you can go into Meta and actually tell it like, go through and invite these people to follow me, and it'll send them a message to say, hey, you should follow these people. Um, and then the last thing I'm really trying to do a lot more of is just phone calls. I mean, we are such a digital age anymore that we don't interface with people. And I have had so much more luck with phone calling people and like phone banking. My staff groans every time I mention it, but I'm like, no, this is key. Like I can call 100 people and have 70% of those people actually show up because I actually made the effort to call them, have a quick conversation, all of that. Uh, AI, we do use I use a lot of AI again just for speed necessarily. It's great for giving you kind of a rough draft and a final edit. And kind of just like, hey, I just wrote this. Can you clean it up? Make this post, add hashtags, do whatever, and it'll kind of at least clean it up for you. Um, I also use a lot of AI anytime I'm making content, especially for social media, if I'm using it across multiple platforms. Again, emails, standalone emails, I'm putting in the newsletter. I need it for a 30-second video. I also need to put, 5 Facebook posts, 2 Instagram posts, and a Blue Sky post. So I can literally tell it, hey, here's all the things I need. Can you take this one post and just recreate it for me in these different platforms? And it saves me a lot of time for just cleaning that up really fast. You'd still have to go through and edit everything. AI is not perfect, but at least it gives you a quick draft that you can run through. And it saves me, I would say, hours of time of trying to reassess and refit these certain messaging into different categories and different types. I've also used it a little bit for anytime I do have, if you are making a post for, say, a fundraising event that's 2 months out and you do need 6 or 8 posts, just promoting that, just say, hey, I need 6 posts. Here's my event. Here's my original post. Can you make it sound a little different in all of them? And it will spit you out 6 new posts that you don't have to sit and write and do a lot of all the work on. Again, just some time savers. You do have to double check it because it doesn't always do what you want it to. Um, but it's getting better. An advice for river professionals who do storytelling, take photos, take videos. They don't have to be 100% perfect. They don't have to always be a beautiful shot of a river with a sunset. Those are great. I literally walk by my river at least, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a week. And I just stop and take a quick photo and I use it in content all the time. And I ask my staff to do it when they're out driving or they're crossing a river. I'm like, hey, just take me a quick picture and send it to me. So we have a lot of information coming. Same with videos. If you're doing video, if you're trying to get into video work, you don't have to take long videos. 3-second video of a river moving and trees blowing in the wind. You can mush all those together with 5 or 6 and make that into a reel, and that goes out with like, hey, how much do you love your rivers? That's it. Simple, easy way to make content. Um, I do when I'm taking photos. I have noticed my staff and a lot of my volunteers, they freeze when I say, "Hey, I need to take a picture of you." Everyone does like this fake pose. I call it the double tap. I learned this when I lived abroad, taking pictures of people in different communities. People will be very staunch and they'll pose first. And then as soon as you're finished taking the picture, they all relax and they laugh and they look around. Those are the candid shots that people love to see. And I've started using those in videos of just, I'll take your picture. And then while they're all sitting there talking and laughing and looking around at each other, I keep videoing it. And that's what I use is these shots of like, here's all the smiles on a river. Here's how amazing our community is. And it's just fun, people smiling and laughing and having a good time versus just sort of posing as a group photo. I have a lot of group photo pictures, so making them just more fun and interesting is always important. I think that's it. Did I miss anything? But I'm sure I've
No, it's
talked a lot.
perfect.
So.
No, it's perfect. Thank you for all of that and a different perspective and some really good and different tips. Okay, so now we are going to have the duo from the Rouge River. So Herman and Allison are both here, and the reason they're both here is you can describe your jobs, but it's another example of how teams can work together. And I'll just let you guys describe why you're both here because it's a little bit different and really important, I think, for folks who are maybe constructed different in the way their staff is set up. So go for it, please.
All right, I am Allison. I am our operations coordinator for Friends of the Rouge. So I manage the communications for the organization, particularly with social media, as well as our newsletter that'll be going out tomorrow. It's bi-weekly for us. And so our work, so Friends of the Rouge, for those that aren't familiar, and we're actually celebrating our 40th anniversary this year, and our work focuses on the Rouge River watershed in Southeast Michigan.
Yes, and I am Herman Jenkins. I'm the Trails Manager for Friends of the Rouge. Organization has four program pillars. There's our restoration program, monitoring, education, and trails program. And in trails, we are working to establish a 29-mile water trail and network of connected greenways on the Lower Rouge.
So these guys work together. You can jump in a second, but so for these, as I think for sure in larger organizations, and then some others where particularly where there's technical programs or really specific programs that might be geographical or like a certain kind of expertise. Program person does the program and then works with the communication person to tell everybody about it or to describe it before it's going to happen, describe it while it's happening. But so then so you guys work together, but have really different responsibilities for that might be kind of mushed into somebody else's one job description.
Absolutely. And I'll let Allison go ahead and take the lead and kind of show guys a little bit of an idea on how that process works.
Okay. I know we're running a little short on time, and Morgan and Daniel already said a lot of great points and general great advice. So for us, how we define our audience, we really keep an eye and we capture it. We capture it for permanently yearly, but we keep an eye as well every month that we do social media metrics. Well, so we keep an eye on our metrics, including our audience. So that's going to be not only the age of our audience, but also the location and the area of our audience. So we have found for Facebook, a majority of our audience is over the age of 55. But for Instagram, the majority of our followers are between 25 and 44. So that just means we have to, we think about that as we're catering our content for those different methods. So for example, our Instagram is going to be definitely more picture focused. We're going to have some more emojis, a little bit more informal, definitely positive, kind of fun and inviting. Our LinkedIn is going to be more link based, kind of to news stories or reports that we've generated or major project milestones. And that's going to be kind of catering more towards organizations and corporations and our partners. So seeing where our content fits and how we can make it fit for the different areas and the different platforms. And then for managing and measuring our social media efforts, so we definitely take a look at our visibility. So how many people are seeing us? As Daniel said, you may have a lot of followers, but you're not maybe reaching all those followers each time. So seeing what is getting that engagement, what's getting those likes, but also what's just getting that visibility and what's getting the shares. We've noticed shares are a really easy metric to see how much we're actually impacting that audience and expanding the audience. People are really liking that and wanting to share it with their own network. So that's something that we definitely keep an eye out for. Things that are shared a lot, and how that's impacting them and what kind of content is making people want to share and invite people to learn more about our organization. We also will take a look if we're driving traffic to something, for example, a volunteer link or registration for a trails event. We'll try to see if we see like a large increase. We'll kind of see what social media post or what other email communication went out that might be tied to that, and see what kind of wording or what content was tied to it that really is reaching that audience to make them want to click and engage. So, yep. And then we also look at not only our overall numbers for the month, like our overall views throughout the whole month, we really look at what our top posts as well are. So was it a graphic? Was it an image? When did we post it? Were there any partners on there? Were there a lot of shares? What kind of comments did we have? See why try to figure out kind of like the why of what it was hitting and why it might be hitting that our audience. For channels, kind of mentioned some of them already. The one we use the most would definitely be our Facebook, and then we use Instagram, YouTube, and recently we've been investing some time in monitoring into LinkedIn, seeing how our content is doing on there and what's hitting for us. We do have a presence on TikTok, but as Daniel kind of mentioned, we haven't really found consistency in our posts there. Sometimes they'll really hit, sometimes they won't. And so it's their algorithm is just like you have to have a lot of content to really keep popular on their content. Um, and then I guess so for my main advice that I would really say is test, test, test. So we often test with our content. So for example, I might this week post a graphic or a flyer for one of our events. The next time I post about that, I'm going to use a picture. I'm going to see which of those is really driving that engagement, driving that people to view as well as engage or click or register, depending on what the action we want it to be. And we also test with the time frame of the day. So I have found advocacy posts do a little bit better early afternoon for us. But volunteer thank yous or volunteer registration invitations do a little better later in the evening. That's when our audience is going to be maybe after dinner scrolling on their phone. That's when we're really seeing it hitting the audience we want. So testing is something we do a lot, and we try to see what's hitting, why it's hitting, and what we can do to really leverage that for future content. And then it was already mentioned here, but but sharing and tagging partners, organizations whenever we can. Also engaging with their content. So if someone shares something of ours, when we can, we want to engage it. We want to show that we see them, we appreciate them, really show that we are here, we're present, and we're listening and watch. Like we're here, we are listening to what people care about. And then our other main point that we really try to do is anything you focused. So the work, it's not the work we're doing, it's the work that your support makes possible. So anytime we can, we're reframing everything with you focused language, really making it about the reader, about that narrative, really wanting people to feel not only invited, but welcome. And we want it to be very just like easy to engage with us and that to show that we're here and ready to listen.
I think that's Allison, you very captured very well the knowledge and experience and time that's required to really be able to max out on use of social media for our org. So as a program manager, it's extremely helpful to have Allison working in this capacity on our behalf. In order to max out the task, we get out in front of our needs as it relates to social media by developing the content palette. So that means developing the narrative, flyers, and links as well, photographs that Allison would find useful. She's then able to quickly, embellish our plan or initial strategy and say, hey, this might deserve its own Facebook page, or whatever way that she feels that she can embellish our approach to execute delivery of that strategy. And then, of course, as she mentioned, she's able to accurately follow those metrics as needed on those posts. And we still rely heavily on email, however, for people that we meet at tabling events and people who have attended our events in the past to support, continued attendance and participation at some of our programs. But social media and use of the various platforms has been very helpful in gaining new people, bringing new people into the fold. So once again, we're very grateful to be able to work and coordinate with Allison in that way. Without her working in this capacity, I can't imagine how we will be able to do it because it does seem like a full-time job for sure. And Allison herself is still juggling other balls in the air for the org. This is not the only thing, the only tool in her belt. But we're managing built environment projects, facilitating a program of over 24 forward-facing tabling events and a schedule of over a dozen paddling events. So in order to, I couldn't imagine adding social media onto that platform of work for myself and my assistant May. So again, very grateful to have Allison working on our behalf.
If you have questions, please put them in the chat or raise your hand. But I have a question for you guys since you're both here. So in Herman and past roundtables, you've mentioned your role, your specific programs that and outreach, but part of your role is diversifying your audience and the people who, spend time on the river. My favorite ever name of a group was the BIPOC Birders, have to say, just because it's a great thing. So you meet BIPOC birders and you want to partner with them or have them understand what you do, maybe telegraph or expand on what you're doing with their audience that you are now beginning to meet. How do you make that connection with Allison, say? Because
Yeah,
you
so
made the connection, she's helping you expand upon it, right?
absolutely. When it comes to social media, how we engage with our partners for some of our planned scheduled paddling events, like we partner with the Queer Outdoors for a Pride paddle event that we do annually. The Detroit Bird Alliance for our birding paddle trips. What we do is we actually make certain that those organizations have the original content palette for those events, the flyers, and they're tagged on social media as well so that they can support engagement within their networks for those events. So it's been extremely helpful in targeting those folks who would have a specific interest or who are enthusiasts, for birding, or who are, movers, shakers, enthusiasts, tastemakers in the LGBT community and will want to attend our Pride paddle. So it's just been very, very helpful engaging and reaching out to the community in that way and building new partnerships. And certainly social media has played a role in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great, thank you. But please don't hesitate to put some questions in the chat or raise your hand. I'm going to share my screen again for a sec here. So we've gone through the questions and the funnel. I want to, as we're kind of getting towards the bottom of the hour, I want to thank our guests again and all the information that you've shared. I gave Daniel an assignment earlier. We have a survey. If you could, we have a YouTube channel, the River Management Roundtables are all posted on the River Training Channel YouTube channel. We have a few upcoming events. We always have a bunch of stuff on like I was mentioning, kind of on the ground, on the river, nuts and bolts type things. We have a hydropower series. We'll have a soon to publish series of 4 events on wild and scenic rivers specifically. We'll be announcing those in the next couple of weeks and would love to have your thoughts on the survey. This just helps us know how we're doing. It's very short, just a couple questions. And
It's in the chat.
yeah, okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. So any questions for our folks here? Appreciate that, Daniel. Thank you.
I will say the last thing I've learned this year, training your audiences, because we have such a large number of age groups that are using social media. It's such an influencer thing, but just reminding people to like, share, and comment on posts, even if they're not tech savvy or social media savvy, it helps us build the algorithms, it helps us reach more people. So I tell a lot of our people anytime I'm out doing outreach, like, share, comment on any of our stuff. It helps us reach a wider audience. It helps get our message out there to more people. So even people that are like, I don't do Facebook or I don't do Instagram, it's like, that's fine. Just get on and go through and like our 10 posts this month, and that's all you got to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because if you don't say that, they might just think, well, they'll be happier if I like it. Well, it's more than that. It's more
Yeah.
than that, right? Yeah.
I have a quick question. Do we still have time for questions?
Yeah, go for it.
It's
Yours might be a
not,
hard question, Becca.
no, it's not. Um, how often do you all use the at everyone tag? Because I feel like I see organizations who do it on every single post, and I now just don't look at any of their content. Like, don't tell them. And then I see, anyway, it's something I wonder, like, I would think it's good to use only on something you really want to push out to everyone, like an annual campaign or a really big event. But I'm just curious, like, what you guys think about it, how you use it, and if it actually does help you reach the people. Like you said, Daniel, you have all the followers, but they're not all seeing it. So,
We don't use it. I personally don't love that. I think of a couple of use cases where we might, but I'm gonna go team kind of annoying.
Yeah, same.
Same.
If it's an emergency, I might use it. If it's something that's very, hey, it's a safety issue or something like that, that I think things that I know people want to hear about and they want to be able to share and tell their friends and family or whatever, I would use it in those cases. But yeah, it's kind of annoying, I feel like for a lot of people, and you just start to ignore it.
yeah, okay. That's how I was feeling. Because I'll be like, oh, so and so tagged our organization. And then I'm like, oh, they tagged everyone.
Yeah.
But one thing you reminded me of, I think Daniel, is something you said, but there's a guy with the Nature Conservancy that's like in the upper echelon of Nature Conservancy people. Jeff Parrish was on a podcast and he said conservation is 90% people and 10% science. Some percentages like that. But it reminds me of this. Like there's all the technical stuff and the metrics and the planning, but the storytelling is like so important and does take time. So thanks for sharing how you guys accomplish that.
Yeah,
I agree
Morgan,
with that stat.
your story about the acreage versus the farmer was really excellent point. Excellent example of how you could be effective and not effective with your storytelling. It was excellent.
Thank you.
Do
Would
you all, oh, go ahead, sorry.
no, go ahead, please.
Sometimes I find it hard as a comms person to tap into those stories. I'll hear it and then I'm like, oh, this is great, like, but sometimes, so if you, maybe, I guess the question is, if you guys are hosting an event or you're doing a thing and you're not there, is it just, how do you facilitate the communication to get that to the social media person so that it can be shared in an authentic way? That's maybe a complicated question. How do you know what's going on?
I've tried this in a couple of different ways. I know sometimes just reporting on an event, yes, we had 50 people show up, we did this, we did that. It's fun, it's interesting, but it quickly gets basic pretty fast. One of the things we did start doing with our staff and some of our volunteers was like, hey, can you write me like a two paragraph story about what you did this weekend, what you did at the event. And so like we can still sprinkle in all the, informational stuff, but then it's like through the eyes of like a volunteer or through the eyes of like a board member or, one of our staff who organized it. And it gets and I tell them to be very personable. Like, I showed up on Saturday and I was exhausted because I've been working really hard this week. And suddenly I'm working with 30 volunteers and I had a blast and we got to be on the river all day. And like, so it's those little like personal stories of, I think that people tend to connect to. And figuring out how to weave those into the different events that you're already doing and just finding different angles of storytelling, honestly.
We charge our staff with coming up with two of those a year. So it's
Mm.
in your requirements, two stewardship stories. So they're longer blog posts, but they are shortened into social media posts. It's difficult. You have to just prime everyone. You have to be thinking about this as you walk into projects and talking to landowners about it early on, getting those before and after photos. So um, yeah, that's how we get those done.
This is
Program manager, I'm always at the events. So, and we're accountable for developing the content. So, and it's really important, as I mentioned, to kind of find the story, of that day. We've done these paddle trips now. This is going to my sixth season. And it can be redundant. You might think that every time you go down the same path or river that it could be the same, but it isn't. You might see a different species of wildlife. It might be deer actually crossing the river that you can get in a frame. There might be an owl that you saw on the river. So those are the types of things that we capture, and then people's experience of that moment. as a part of it. So yeah, capturing that story I think is key.
Ooh, thanks, you guys. Yeah, I think there's internal communication in the planning, like you said, Morgan, like have your board members or your volunteers talk about that ahead of events as a way to, yeah, tell that story. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Becca.
Morgan, you want to go ahead? You can say so.
Oh, no, just great questions. Great
Yeah.
thought-provoking discussion.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Allison and Morgan and Herman and Daniel and Becca, for everyone for being here. And we'll post this in a couple of days. And thanks for the work you do. Our rivers, thank you. And you're awesome. Have a good day, good week. Stay warm. Unless you're in California, you're already warm.
Thanks everyone.